Morgan Griffith, Congressman, 9th District, Republican, Virginia, with us now. Congressman, great to have you.
Good to be with you.
So, listen, yesterday, the president at the White House having an impromptu televised negotiation session. And look, I've been with this president enough times during the campaign and other areas where, he'll get everybody's input who says, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And then you kind of get back to him with something. But, he's a much better listener than people give him credit for. Now, a lot of my base, the Trump base, going crazy last night, saying he's going to sell out on the wall and there's going to be amnesty and we're going to get nothing in return and it's 86 Reagan redux. What is Morgan Griffith's take on this whole DACA situation?
Well, I don't think the president's going to do that, and I don't think the House would vote for a package. At least not the Republicans in the House would vote for a package that didn't have some significant gains for those of us who believe that you ought to protect our border, you ought to keep it from being porous. We ought to stop the lottery just to get into the U.S. It ought to be based on merit. Most other countries try to have their immigration policy so that they're bringing in the best of the best. That's what we need to do in the United States. Bring in folks who bring talent to the United States if we're going to bring them in, and stop the lottery and stop the porous borders. I've seen some proposals out there that look pretty good, but we'll just have to see what the final package is.
So you're kind of like me. You're not going crazy over the meeting he had yesterday and some of the comments he made, like, give me a bill, I'll sign it. I mean, when he said that, here was my take, because I saw it live. Here was my take. It's like, okay, well, I expect the Republicans to give me something that is going to be very palatable to my base and for those that believe in the principles that propelled me to the presidency. That was my take. How about you?
I would agree with that. I think that the president anticipates getting something because we control the House and the Senate. He anticipates getting something that will be acceptable to the base. It would be crazy for us to send him anything else. Now, the Democrats are going to hold out for just pure amnesty and let everybody in, but that's not where we're at. And, the real sad thing here is the Democrats always like to lecture us and say, well, you need to compromise. The problem is, we could solve some of the problems they have. We're not going to give them everything they want if they would be willing to compromise. But it could very well be that within the next couple of weeks we'll see the Democrats once again, in order to gain an upper hand in political theater, actually damaging the position that they hold, which is that, we ought to do something about these so-called dreamers. If we can secure our borders, if we can make sure that we're doing the right things, then maybe at that point, as Garrett just said, once we have that accomplished, then maybe we can take a look at trying to deal with the reality of these young people who came here at 1 and 2 and don't know anything different. Of course, as I told somebody on a teletown hall last night, it was their parents who made that decision to take that risk. And so I feel bad for them. But, if we can't protect our borders, we can't protect our country.
I think what bothers some people about the whole DACA situation is like there's just a lack of responsibility here, right? Because you laid it out. I mean, somebody made the decision to break a United States law and thumb their nose at it. And, the problem with a complete amnesty program and a quick path to citizenship, although it sounds great, the message it sends to everybody that is not in the United States and a citizen now is this: find a way in. Just figure it out. Get in. Somehow get in. And the Americans are really nice, and there'll eventually be amnesty, and you'll get food stamps and be taken care of. You just got to get in. Nothing will happen to you. I mean, that becomes a magnet of illegality. I think that's what bothers a lot of people. When we talk about the dreamers and not giving amnesty, it's not because, I'm on CNN, and of course all the pro-DACA amnesty people call them, you have to have a heart for the kids. It's all about the kids. It's these kids like they're 9. No, many of them are adults, and their parents brought them here illegally, and now they want a no-consequence situation, and then without anything to stop it from going on in perpetuity. We already did that in 86, right? Why would we do it again?
Well, I don't think we should do it again. And as Tom said, he had talked to a number of the dreamers who had come to the Capitol to talk to people. I talked to them as well. And I just told them, I said, we have to protect the borders. And, they're very polite. I think they've been trained well. I don't know who orchestrated all that. But they're very polite, but you can sometimes see in their eyes that they don't understand that. But we have to protect our borders if we're going to remain a nation. Mm-hmm. And, if we want to go to one world order, that's where we're headed if we have no borders. And I don't think that's where we want to be as the United States. We've always been exceptional, and we've always held ourselves up to trying to reach that city on the hill. And, we've done very well. We've done better than any other nation in the history of the world at giving liberty and giving rights to people and making sure that everybody has an opportunity. But that doesn't mean we'll continue to be able to do that if we just let the borders wide open and let anybody who can get here into the country and then provide them with all kinds of benefits.
So, Congressman, let's get to the wall. Many of us believe that this was a linchpin, a cornerstone, if you will, of the Trump campaign for president. It's not only symbolic, but it works. And so do you see any scenario where we would give a deal on amnesty for DACAs or something to let them stay without legitimate funding, dollars and cents? Here it is in the budget to start at least partial construction of the wall that this president has promised for 2 years?
No, I don't. And I don't think we will accept a wimpy deal either. We will not, do something today for a promise of something tomorrow. Wimpy used to always say in Popeye cartoons, I will gladly pay you tomorrow for a cheeseburger today. Well, we're not buying that cheeseburger until we have cash on the barrelhead that says we're going to secure our southern border. And we have to build a wall. Now, when I say build a wall, I'm talking about all kinds of different things. In some of the rugged terrain, maybe that is a smart fence, a high-tech fence, like the Israelis have on the West Bank. They only have about 17 miles. Maybe it's a complicated overlapping drone system. But we've got to have money in the bill that guarantees that we're going to start securing that border. And when I say start, I don't mean 5 feet. A significant improvement on where we stand today.
Was there anything in the president's dialogue yesterday, and I asked Tom Garrett the same question, Congressman Griffith, that you took exception to, or when you heard it that made you cringe? Or do you take my position, which is this is just Trump, this is the way he communicates, this is the way he's run his businesses, he takes everybody's consideration in, and he puts a challenge out. And I thought the challenge he put out is, I expect Republicans to give me something that is going to make sense for everybody, including my base. That's the way I interpret it. What about you?
I interpret it that way, too. Now, the press loves to. Lots of people love to on Facebook and so forth. They go off on, a little piece of what the president says. But here's what I've observed in any number of areas. And in some areas, I think it's something Congress has to deal with. The president goes, he makes a statement as to what his principles are, and then he tries to follow through. He said he was going to try to follow the law, and he wasn't going to try to govern from the executive office. So, DACA was an executive order that didn't have congressional approval. Mm-hmm. He says he's going to undo it. He gives a grace period. That's exactly in keeping with his principles. I don't think the judge was right. I don't know how you can't undo an executive order with another executive order. I think the judge is just plain wrong in California, but that's not unusual. Right. The same thing on the marijuana policy. I favor medicinal marijuana. I think that the Congress needs to address the whole issue because of the improper, ultra-legal position that the administration took, of the Obama administration took, in saying that, we're not going to enforce the marijuana laws. Now we have states all over the country with different pattern of laws, and now, the law's still out there that it's illegal. Mm-hmm. So what does the president say he was going to do? He's going to follow the rule of law. So he's put everybody on notice. You know what? We may start prosecuting. Congress needs to deal with that. Whatever, I wrote my column on that this week. Whatever Congress decides, we'll have to deal with as a nation, but there needs to be a debate. It needs to be done by Congress. That's what the Constitution says. So the president said he was going to follow the Constitution, and people scream and holler when he starts following the Constitution. I think the same thing is true in this case. The president said he was going to build a wall. It's got to be done in steps. Mexico will have to pay a portion of this at some point, but we'll figure that out as we go along. But right now, if we're going to do anything, we have to fund securing our southern border, our ports, and make sure that we don't have this crazy system where people can get into the country legally and they just never leave because we don't have any idea where they are.
So you get this bill. It's going to go to the Senate. It's going to get out of committee. Somehow McConnell will cobble together, I guess, enough votes to, bring it to the floor, hopefully, because the Democrats in the cloture room can even stop debate on it, just, kill it before it sees the light of day. I don't think that's going to happen. So it gets to the floor of the Senate. You're going to need a bunch of, at least, 10, 9, 8 Democrats to back this. And if it's got money in there for security and the wall, and they say, no, we're just not doing that, we want a clean DACA bill, then they threaten a government shutdown. Who's going to get the blame for this?
Well, unfortunately, Republicans generally get the blame because the media will put it on us, but we've got to continue to tell people out there, wait a minute, whoa. They are shutting down the government in order to protect the rights of people who broke the law. What? How does that make any sense? It doesn't. But we've got to get out there, and we've all got to talk about it, and I hope they don't do that, but that could happen.
Well, based on the Republicans' track record in Washington of messaging and the political messaging that's coming out of the White House, which has been horrific, I don't have a lot of confidence in this. I mean, some way, somehow, the Democrats have the entire legacy media behind them. So they'll spin this, they'll blame Trump, they'll blame the Republicans. Look, if you're the Democrats, here's the thing that I was thinking about last night. I just want to get your take on this. If you're Democratic leadership, you are smelling blood in the water, right? You're looking at poll numbers that say generic ballot, 55% of people want to vote for the Democratic candidate for Congress. I don't care who it is. Only 35% Republicans, highest it's ever been. Nobody can name me a single Democratic senator who's going to get beat in 2018, except maybe Joe Manchin, and that's 50-50. So they're smelling blood in the water. Why would they compromise on anything that would help the president solve a problem when basically they just have to get to August and then they're going to win and take power, and then they can impeach him in 90 days, which is exactly what's going to happen. So what is their incentive here to compromise on anything? That's my question.
Well, and I would hope the good of the nation, but we've seen them play these political games before,
exactly.
So we'll have to see. But I will tell you that, you can fool some of the people all of the time and all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And the Democrats may be going out on a bridge too far.
All right, let's get back to marijuana. I appreciate that statement you just made. So Jeff Sessions, because he hasn't done a lot of the things that many of us thought he should do, now he's going off and saying he's going to crack down on marijuana laws with these various states. And a lot of people saying, well, I thought Republicans were for states' rights. So reconcile that for us.
All right, here's the dilemma that we have. We have a law on the books that says it's illegal. The marijuana trade historically has been across state lines. It theoretically can be grown in one state and used in one state. But in reality, historically, it's crossed state lines, putting it into interstate commerce. The country has to debate where we want to go. Tom Garrett has a bill in that lets the states do it. I, of course, have long supported medicinal marijuana. But, again, that's controlled by the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency as to whether or not you can even put it on the list for doctors to use. The Obama administration did some strange things, and now we have a disrespect for the rule of law. Sessions is saying, hey, we ought to follow the law. I agree with that in principle, but I think Congress needs to debate this issue. I know where I stand, but if Congress were to vote to do something, if we vote to keep it as a federal crime, then I think we have to give states and the citizens in those states who were led to believe it was okay by the Obama administration time to get in line, and we shouldn't be charging people with criminal charges and taking away their liberty when it was the federal government that created the confusion through the administrative branch. And we have to give them some time. If we choose to decriminalize it nationally, I would be opposed to that, but that's a decision that Congress would have to make. Or we can turn it over to the states and let the states do it, with the exception of the DEA, in which case I think that we need to say that we need to have the research and put it on there as a schedule. We have opiates, which are scheduled, and marijuana that's not. And I don't know anybody that would argue that marijuana is more dangerous than opiates, except the DEA. Mm-hmm. And the Obama DEA had a chance to reschedule medicinal marijuana and refused to do so. So you want to talk about confusing and really getting the situation screwed up. It's not Sessions. It was the Obama administration. Sessions is just saying, okay, this is the law, we ought to follow it. And I agree with that in principle, but I think we got to have some time to get Congress on the right track, as the president did with DACA. They need to say we're going to start enforcing it, next January, and give Congress time to figure out what the nation wants in this regard.
So, Congressman, what was Obama's objective here in not going forward with medicinal marijuana in this way that you've articulated it? I mean, what was their political objective?
I really think that what happened was the looking the other way on the enforcement of recreational marijuana was a political objective to get all the folks who feel that it ought to be legalized on their side. But they then didn't intervene or didn't say to the DEA, we need to make this policy consistent. And the DEA went in and said, we can't find any reason to use it for medicinal purposes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what? I mean, there's all kinds of data. Now, a lot of it is word of mouth and just one folks saying another, but we know that it has done something. We don't know exactly why. For children with epilepsy. You want to talk about the children, there's a big one. And then you have the situation that's long existed for glaucoma, for patients with cancer. There's arguments that it may be helpful in pain. Well, if it is helpful, and I'd like doctors to tell me that. I don't want a country lawyer making that decision. Mm-hmm. But if it is a pain issue, then if that does help, marijuana, while I think it's a dangerous substance, marijuana is less dangerous than opiates. And if we could substitute giving marijuana instead of giving opiates for pain, that's a plus for our society. And the DEA stood in the way, and it was the Obama administration DEA. Makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, it makes no sense, and I appreciate you going in depth in that, Congressman, because it, I think, has really enlightened me and many of our listeners as to what exactly is going down here with marijuana. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I'm my generation. I was the only person I knew of any of my friends that didn't. I've never smoked it one time, so I'm not even in a position to comment on it other than I was for it, and then Chap Peterson took me to dinner for 3 hours and told me the horror stories about legalizing it. So I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out like many other people. But I think there's no question for medicinal purposes it's helpful. We've seen that over and over. There's enough evidence saying that, especially, like you say, for children with autism, with epilepsy and other anxiety-driven things. And hopefully we can find a way forward on this that is acceptable to the majority of people, especially in Virginia, Maryland, etc. Congressman, I'm out of time. I want to thank you for being with us today. It's great to have you back. More information, go to griffith.house.gov.